When I look at Lego, I see art waiting to happen. To me, Lego is more than just a toy. It's a way of giving substance to a story, of turning words into worlds and making ideas come to light. A single brick is the starting point, but it is never the end. Poetry. This is what people meet when they go to Tim Schwalfenberg's website. And it sounds like something that would come from someone who has built his share of Lego models, which you clearly have.
A few.
How much does this hobby mean to you? It's a big question to start with.
Yeah, I start with the big ones. I didn't know you were going to read that off my website. But it means a lot. It's something that I've always loved as a kid, but especially building it more and more and being part of the community too. It's a way to express ideas, right? I'm a very visual thinker, so I can see things in my head, and Lego is just one of those things that is easy to make it, right? It's easy, I can see it and I can build it, right? And that's the beauty of the brick to me. But even more than that, part of what I love about Lego is the community too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know when I started really building that lugs existed, that conventions existed, and any of those things existed.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to meet people, being inspired by other people, and being able to connect with people across the world is something pretty incredible about it as well.
Okay.
My life wouldn't be the same without those people.
Yeah. Cool. Can you hear right?
I can speak louder.
A little bit louder,
yeah,
maybe.
for
Yeah,
sure.
just to make sure. So we'll rewind a few years. Can you remember your very first Lego set?
No. I have an older brother. So he was building Lego before I was, and I don't know when I received my first one. I was probably playing with his Lego bricks before I ever got my own Lego set. It's kind of all blurred together.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, I don't have a specific memory. I just remember building ever since I was young.
Mm-hmm. So while my previous guest, your fellow Canadian, has been a Lego fan for many years, you seem to represent this new generation of young builders who grew up while it was cool to be a nerd. Yeah. And because of this, while many of us became embarrassed or just thought this is not something adults can do, many of your peers seem to never have had a dark age and just kept on building. Does that description fit you?
Yeah, for the most part. I wouldn't call it a dark age. I had a dim age, if anything. During high school, I didn't build very much. I was very involved in sports and other activities. I would get a Lego set at Christmas, but that was about it. And then I guess the transition afterwards kind of came about where I dropped a whole bunch of things during university because everyone told me it was going to be really, really hard, and it was hard, but not as hard as people told me it was going to be. So I had a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah, because I know that for you there was this almost like a before and after moment where you more or less made a conscious decision to try to get more serious about the building, which sounds like a very interesting path into Eiffel-Dom, if you can call it that. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so again, early university, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I stumbled across mock pages back then, and I didn't even know Flickr existed or any of these other platforms, but I saw some really cool things people were building. Like, hey, I would like to try and build that, and so I started building, I made an account, I started posting some things, and I thought they were great, they were really terrible. I think that's how it always starts. And slowly started building my collection. I ended up working at the Lego store in my local hometown, so I got a lot of half price or on sale Lego that certainly helped to build my collection a little bit. And it ballooned from there. I guess I went from not building much to building a ship in September in about a year. So it got a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I see that, yeah. So you say that this was when you started university?
Yes.
Which is when you're 18 in Canada?
Yes, 18.
Yeah. So that's not that long ago. You're 23?
I'm 23.
Yeah, so I've been through your Flickr and you've managed a lot in 5 years.
Well, 5 years seems like a long time to me, but yeah, I've just graduated, so for me, my Lego hobby is very much tied to my university experience, actually, and I've built a lot, but I think that's partly just because you have a lot of flexible time during university. I maybe should have spent more of it on school, but I had a lot more fun spending it on Lego.
And you have less of it now?
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
Okay. So we'll get back to how much you build and also how diverse it all is. But let's just touch on one of those things that you have found time for since you decided to build seriously, Iron Builder, which is a competition where the participants are given a seed part and then have to build as many high-quality mocks as possible within a month featuring this part. You've done this twice,
yes.
Both times with a silver metallic part.
Yes.
The Technic pin joiner and the little minifig barbell used as a hubcap in the Ghostbusters Ecto 1 set. How did you approach this challenge And did your approach change a lot the second time?
Yeah, so Iron Builder is an interesting contest. It's a little bit grueling. My first one was against Matt in Illinois. It was a silver barbell. My goal for that competition was, well, after watching a whole bunch of other Iron Builders happen and seeing all the incredible builds, was to try and actually do one build a day. I didn't quite manage that. I think I ended up with 28 builds, but I made a ship as well. So I think that took up some of the time. But it's an interesting contest because a lot of times if I'm not building for something like Iron Builder, maybe you just fiddle around with parts or you don't have a specific idea in mind. I think in Iron Builder, even when you're not building, you still feel like you're building. Because when I was working full time, but my mind's still thinking, what could I use this for? I hate this piece. It's so
keep seeing it.
It just flashes whenever I see those pieces, right? But even when you're at work, you're thinking, what are the ideas? And so when you actually get to build, it goes very fast because you've been thinking about this idea all day, right? So instead of having to maybe sit down and fiddle around with parts, you've already got the idea. And so, okay, now I just need to do this. Or I'll just build it this way so I can take a photo and then nobody has to see the back.
From the one angle.
Yes, from the one angle.
Okay.
Nobody else is going to see.
But the picture is nice.
Yes. And then over time, I suppose, my second one, I tried to build even more things. So I built 52 builds in February, so it's a shorter month, 28. And I just wanted to set the record for most builds. Some of them were very terrible. But I think ultimately that was probably a mistake. I should have built less and built them higher quality. I lost
yes,
them.
exactly. Okay. So have you built a lot of models featuring those two seat parts centrally after that?
I've built a couple.
Really?
I think metallic silver photographs very, very nice because the light just reflects off it so nicely.
So they don't make you want to puke?
Sometimes.
Okay.
When I look at that bag, it's it's a little terrifying.
Okay. So as I said, your portfolio as a builder is impressive and diverse. I suspect at least partly because of Iron Builder, where you have to branch out in all directions to find inspiration. Do you intentionally build in a lot of styles and themes?
I definitely do. Maybe I just get bored easily, but I don't like building stuff that I built before. So if I built a castle, I'll try and build a spaceship next, or I'll try and build something else. I like to experiment, and it's not just what have I built before, but what has the community built? So what have they done? What have they come up with, and what's new, right? So it's getting harder and harder to find sometimes, but I think there's still a lot of ideas out there that haven't been tackled.
Okay, that's cool. You are an engineer now. Do you find that this interconnects with your building in any way or inspires you? Maybe especially with the metallic silver.
I do work with metal all the time. But I think it does. That whole side of problem solving, right, of turning an idea around and, okay, does this work, does this work, does this work, and then finally this.
And math?
This is the one. The math, yeah,
well.
Definitely all of the brick math. It's a little bit simpler than maybe some of the engineering math, which is a bit of a break. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, sure.
But it certainly contributes to what I like about Lego.
So arguably, your most famous model is a huge diorama from a post-apocalyptic, difficult word.
That's the right word. Don't hurt yourself.
Apocalyptic video game called The Last of Us. So I'd like to ask you to briefly just walk us through it. How did you plan it out? How long did it take? Do you know how many parts you used?
You're asking all the convention questions.
Yes, in one.
Yes, I don't know how many pieces are in it. I'll start with that one. I did actually plan out the model. When I'm building a small model, I usually won't plan it out, partly because you don't need to think about how you're going to transport it or how you're going to take it apart or any of that. This one I made a drawing. It was originally about half the size of what it turned into, but I wanted to make a city block of sorts, and the goal was in many ways to make a fully Lego diorama. So there is some photoshopping in the background there, but for the most part to make it seem like it's immersive, or at least as immersive as possible. So I chose to do a block with a park in the middle and 6 buildings, and I'd been playing around with a bunch of techniques during my final exams at university. I didn't want to start building during my finals because that is just a bad idea.
Yeah, just planning.
Yes, just the planning and having these little things, and then I could bricklink all of the orders and build afterwards. So it took about 2 weeks to build, but it was during Christmas break, so I had full days of building in there.
So this made the shortlist for the Brothers Brick Creation of the Year 2017. The main picture of it on Flick has 739 faves. And all the 11 pictures of it have in total been favored more than 2,500 times. Did you expect this kind of reception?
I think you always hope that
Mhm.
people are going to like it or that you're going to have good reception. And so I hope for that. I didn't necessarily expect it to do as well as it did, but I'm
Mhm.
certainly glad that people did like it as much as they did.
Yeah. It's pop culture. Do you think that helps?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it ended up on Facebook trending at some point, which, okay. I had my friends in university talking to me about it actually, which was strange.
Yeah. There are articles on the internet saying this guy built this diorama from Lego bricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
That's cool. You actually brought it to BrickCon
Mhm.
last year, which is mind-blowing to me because if you look at the level of detail and the detailed pictures, it looks so incredibly fragile that I would have thought it to be impossible to move out of the basement after you'd taken those pictures. Did you plan to build it so sturdy that you could move it? And how much reassembly was required when you got to the convention?
So it's funny you talk about it being photographed in the basement because I had to plan to move it in the first place.
Oh,
I
yeah.
built it upstairs,
Uh-huh.
and I moved it down 2 flights of stairs to be able to photograph it in the first place. So it's actually modular. Each of the buildings and the park in the middle split apart, and it's surprisingly sturdy for what it is. And I did move it down to BrickCon. I was able to drive. Because
Okay.
It's a little bit closer, and
You didn't ship it?
I didn't ship it, no, and I didn't fly with it because that's just always a nightmare.
Yeah.
And it arrived mostly intact, and the nice thing about a post-apocalyptic build is if you lose a couple pieces, nobody's going to notice because it's already falling. It's already falling apart.
Uh-huh. Tactic. Very, very good. One thing I find very interesting about this creation is that you actually used 3D printing for some of the details. One whole facade is made almost entirely from bricks that you created in your own basement. Why?
Well, I think it's kind of going off of what Deborah was talking about. There's all those parts you wish you had, but I wanted to make, maybe I'm less patient. And so the house on the gray house in the middle actually is the 3D printed bricks.
Yep.
And so Lego has an ingot piece, right, which has got the kind of faceted sides. And I've always enjoyed that piece, but they don't have a 1x1 faceted
Yeah.
tile. So for me, I wanted to
get the edges
to
right.
get the edges right and to have a sort of masonry effect. I
Yep.
decided to make a 1x1 and also a 1x2 tile in that color and to be able to get a texture I wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah. So these were particular pieces that you felt you needed to get the effect right, and not copies of Lego pieces. Now, I am certainly no purist. I will happily cut or paint bricks. They're mine, so I get to decide what to do with them. But some people most certainly would call this sacrilege and an easy solution to something you could have built around with existing bricks. How do you respond to that?
Well, perhaps it is sacrilege, but I think it's very beautiful sacrilege. And yes,
The
there is...
end result is the most important
To
thing.
me, that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what it is. So plastic bricks are a medium, and well, I haven't used Mega Blocks yet.
Yet.
I'm not quite that far. I've considered it at different points. I think the big thing is to decide where you're going to draw your lines. So everybody is going to have their own system that they work in. So I'm going to just use Lego bricks. Some people, I'm going to be purist and I'm going to use Lego packaging or Lego cardboard or a Lego pen, whatever you want to. And maybe for me, I'd say I'm going to use 3D printed bricks and see what I can do with that. I think the bigger you draw your box, the more possibilities that you have.
Yeah.
But I also think that within a box, you can still have basically limitless combinations and creativity.
Yeah. Okay, we'll leave this. I assume that bringing it to BrickCon was important to you because I know that you really like conventions where you can meet and talk to people. You talked about the community
Yes.
very early on. This is your first one outside North America. What's it like, and is it very, very different so far?
Well, it's similar in many ways. I don't understand all the languages. That's probably one of the big differences. But it's been awesome to be able to meet people that I've seen online, right? I've always dreamed of meeting this person from Germany or from Norway or from Norway or from other places, and it's very much that community feel. I love the cabins that they have here. That is wonderful, and the conventions are part of what gets me inspired to build as well, right? It's
Bouncing ideas.
bouncing
off others.
ideas off of people, talking about the parts you wish you had, the colors you wish you had, or the things that everybody wants to build, right? So that's
The part you want to make.
yes,
Yeah.
all of those things. Yes.
So last question for you. You're in Denmark right now because some of your models have just been installed in the Masterpiece Gallery in the Lego house. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
We've touched on the diversity in your model portfolio, which is something that I've often seen with friends who have made a conscious effort to become a Lego designer. Is that something that you would like?
I certainly considered it, but I do very much enjoy engineering. I like the job that I have, but part of the reason why I've built the way that I have is definitely if sometime in the future I was potentially looking into a Lego design job, I could present a portfolio
Yep.
that's varied and different. But I still need to work on my play features because those just sit there and look pretty.
Yeah, okay. No play features in that? No?
If you count tiles falling off.
Yeah, exactly, it falls apart. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
Tim.
you.